This comes to us from clickondetroit.com. A suspended Detroit police officer was in court on Monday on domestic violence charges. Big surprise there. Officer Otis Funches is suspended without pay, as his case moves through the court system.
Chief White taking swift action against both officers. The officer in that domestic violence case was in court here in Taylor earlier today. The judge saw that there was enough evidence for him to go to trial. Detroit cop Otis Funches Jr. bound over to circuit court and headed to trial, accused of roughing up his girlfriend. He's charged with assault with intent to do great bodily harm, interfering with the crime report, and domestic violence for allegedly choking out his girlfriend, who's also a Detroit police officer. The incident said to have happened in the city of Taylor back in August. Now, Officer Funches, the officer in that domestic violence case, still suspended without pay. He was given a $10,000 personal bond and is due back in court November 1st.
The charges here in this case against Otis Funches are aggravated felonious assault and strong-arm domestic assault. You'll find out why that charge is being pressed. The victim, she is also a Detroit police officer. What she told Taylor police happened a couple of weeks ago, nothing short of horrifying.
We received information of some serious misconduct, some serious accusations, and I immediately launched an investigation with Internal Affairs. I put in a recommendation to suspend Officer Funches without pay.
Detroit Police Chief James White is talking to the defenders about Officer Otis Funches, charged with felony assault. The alleged victim, also a Detroit police officer. The defenders obtaining this police report of the domestic violence incident, and the female officer describing a terrifying attack that took place August 28th. The officer says she let Funches into her Taylor home, where she says Funches forced her into her child's bedroom.
We looked into the facts of the circumstances. We found some troubling information.
Detroit Police Chief James White says he moved quickly to suspend Funches without pay.
I've said it many times. It's a privilege wearing this badge. It is not a right. And in order to participate in that privilege, you have to conduct yourself. We're held to a higher standard. And the actions that I saw and the investigations that I read was that he did not meet our departmental standards and he was not acting appropriately.
She told police that Funches grabbed her by the neck and tripped her to the ground, punching her in the face multiple times. She says he then put a loaded handgun on her nightstand, then grabbed her by the neck again, pushed her down on the bed as he allegedly strangled her. The victim says Funches placed his hand over her nose and mouth, strangling her until she lost consciousness. Prior to passing out, the victim says she desperately tried to call for help on her Apple Watch, but says the officer then took her phone, purse, and keys so she could not leave. She says she tried to alert others by pounding on a wall. That's when she alleges Officer Funches choked her until she was no longer conscious.
Chief White also confirming a former officer is being investigated for allegedly stealing thousands of dollars from a kiosk at the Detroit Detention Center. The theft happened back in mid-January. Authorities realized they were light after conducting an audit in August.
We notified Internal Affairs, Professional Standards. They opened up an investigation. And within a couple of weeks, we had enough where we knew a gross policy violation had occurred.
That officer was suspended without pay but resigned before facing a disciplinary hearing. DPD is pursuing criminal charges against him, and that's not all.
But there's some things I can do to ensure that they won't be back to the department, and there's some notifications I can make to ensure that they don't get jobs in other law enforcement agencies, and I have a responsibility to do that. And I take that responsibility very seriously, so I will be doing that.
Chief White says, as jarring as the allegations are, they are not representative of the department.
I can point to examples of outstanding police work. I can point to an example of officers saving lives on a day in and day out basis, going to barricaded gunmen where people are armed and threatening to kill themselves and threatening to kill others, people who have shot our officers, and our officers have returned fire, striking them, and then immediately go into a life-saving mode and saving the person who has shot one of our officers. The overwhelming majority of the men and women in this department do a fine job, and they don't want bad officers giving them, putting us in a bad light either.
Don't forget that she's a police officer. A woman got victimized by a man. That's all we need to know. We don't need to know if she's a janitor, a school teacher, or the President of the United States. A woman was victimized by a man.
It's not just the police report, what she's telling officers. She was on the witness stand this morning testifying against another Detroit police officer, and the judge swiftly moved this case to trial. Also, police caught up with Funches the night in question here. His car broke down, so police were there to arrest him. They found a gun in his pocket, apparently a Detroit police issued gun, but not Officer Funches. He told police it was his partner's gun, which raises more question about what he was doing with his partner's Detroit police gun. We're live tonight. Sean Lake, Local 4, back to you.
Yeah, it sure does. There are a lot of questions in this one. I've got to ask, Sean, how's the victim doing in this case?
We are told that she is okay. I mean, for as much as you could be, and it's such a horrifying situation, Detroit police say they are giving her all the backup, all the things that she may need at this really terrible time.
All right, thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you, Sean.